In the year 2187, Earth had become a desolate wasteland, ravaged by centuries of environmental neglect and devastating wars. Humanity's last hope lay in the massive space station Icarus, a technological marvel that housed the remnants of civilization. Among the station's inhabitants were Zoe Castillo, a brilliant engineer, and her team of experts tasked with maintaining the station's critical systems. Zoe had always been fascinated by the stories of Earth's past glory, and she often found herself wandering the station's virtual reality archives, exploring lush green forests and vibrant cities that no longer existed. Despite the challenges of life on Icarus, she remained determined to find a way to restore the planet to its former splendor. One fateful day, the station's life support systems began to fail, and panic spread through the population. Zoe and her team worked tirelessly to repair the damage, but it soon became clear that the situation was more dire than they had initially thought. The station's AI, known as Ether, had detected a critical flaw in the core reactor that could not be repaired without a complete shutdown. As the crisis deepened, Zoe was approached by a mysterious figure named Raven, who claimed to have vital information about Earth's condition. Raven revealed that he had been part of a secret mission to the planet's surface and had discovered pockets of life that had somehow survived the apocalypse. He urged Zoe to convince the station's leaders to send a team back to Earth to investigate these findings. Zoe knew that returning to Earth was a dangerous proposition, but she also realized that it might be their only chance to save humanity. She presented her case to the station's council, arguing that they had a responsibility to explore every possible option. After much debate, the council reluctantly agreed to send a small expedition team, with Zoe leading the charge. As Zoe and her team prepared for their mission to Earth, they were met with a mix of hope and skepticism from the station's inhabitants. Some saw the expedition as a foolish endeavor, a waste of precious resources on a planet that was beyond saving. Others, however, clung to the idea that Earth could be restored, and they rallied behind Zoe's leadership. The team's preparations were meticulous, and they spent countless hours studying the limited data they had on Earth's current conditions. They pored over satellite images and sensor readings, trying to piece together a picture of what they might encounter on the surface. Zoe worked closely with Ether to develop contingency plans for every possible scenario, knowing that their survival would depend on their ability to adapt to the unknown. As the launch date approached, Zoe found herself haunted by dreams of Earth's past. In her sleep, she wandered through the ruins of once great cities, their crumbling facades illuminated by the eerie glow of the planet's now toxic atmosphere. She saw ghostly figures wandering the streets, their faces twisted in agony as they searched for a way to escape their fate. Despite her fears, Zoe remained resolute in her mission. She knew that the fate of humanity rested on her shoulders, and she was determined to succeed. On the day of the launch, she stood before her team, her voice steady as she delivered a rousing speech about the importance of their work. "We are the last hope for humanity," she said, her eyes shining with determination. "We will not fail." As the expedition ship, christened the Phoenix, detached from the Icarus station and began its descent to Earth, Zoe felt a sense of exhilaration mixed with trepidation. She knew that the challenges ahead would be unlike anything she had ever faced, but she also knew that she had the skills and the determination to overcome them. With a deep breath, she settled into her seat and prepared for the journey of a lifetime. As the Phoenix descended through Earth's atmosphere, Zoe and her team were stunned by the sight that greeted them. The once blue planet was now shrouded in a thick, toxic haze, its surface a patchwork of decaying cities and barren wastelands. The few areas of green that remained were small and scattered, like tiny oases in a vast desert. The ship touched down on the outskirts of what had once been London, and the team cautiously exited the vessel, their protective suits shielding them from the harsh environment. The air was thick with the acrid stench of decay, and the ground beneath their feet was littered with the remnants of a long-dead civilization. As they explored the ruins, Zoe and her team soon discovered that the pockets of life Raven had spoken of were not the thriving communities they had hoped for. Instead, they found small groups of survivors, their bodies ravaged by disease and malnutrition. These people clung to a meager existence, scavenging for food and water in the ruins of the once great city. Despite the bleak situation, Zoe refused to give up hope. She and her team set up a base camp and began to study the environment, searching for any clues that might help them understand what had happened to the planet. They collected samples of the toxic air and soil, hoping to find a way to purify them and make the Earth habitable once more. As the days turned into weeks, the team's supplies began to dwindle, and they were forced to venture further into the ruins in search of resources. It was during one of these expeditions that they made a shocking discovery: a group of survivors who had managed to create a self-sustaining community deep underground. These people had access to clean water and food, and they had even managed to salvage some of the old world's technology. Zoe and her team were cautiously welcomed into the underground community, their arrival met with a mix of hope and suspicion. The leader of the group, a grizzled old man named Marcus, explained that they had been living in the tunnels for decades, ever since the world above had become too dangerous to inhabit. They had managed to create a stable ecosystem, growing their own food and purifying water from an underground spring. As Zoe and Marcus discussed the state of the world and the possibility of restoring the planet, a glimmer of hope began to emerge. Marcus revealed that his people had been working on a plan to regenerate the Earth's atmosphere, using a combination of ancient technology and natural processes. They had discovered a way to stimulate the growth of a special type of algae that could absorb the toxic gases and release oxygen back into the air. Zoe was fascinated by this discovery, and she and her team eagerly joined forces with the underground community to bring the plan to fruition. They worked tirelessly, combining their scientific knowledge with the practical skills of the tunnel dwellers. Slowly but surely, they began to see results, as small patches of green began to appear on the planet's surface. However, their efforts did not go unnoticed. A rival faction, led by a ruthless warlord named Xander, had been monitoring the underground community for years, and they saw Zoe's team as a threat to their power. They launched a brutal attack on the tunnels, determined to seize control of the regeneration technology for themselves. In the chaos of the battle, Zoe found herself face to face with Xander, his eyes glinting with malice. "You think you can save this world?" he sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're nothing but a fool, chasing a dream that died long ago." But Zoe refused to back down, her resolve only strengthened by the adversity she faced. She knew that the fate of humanity depended on the success of their mission, and she was determined to see it through to the end. In the aftermath of the battle, Zoe and her team emerged victorious, but at a heavy cost. Many of the underground community had lost their lives, and the regeneration technology had been damaged in the fighting. However, Zoe refused to let their sacrifices be in vain. She rallied the survivors and set about repairing the damage, determined to see the project through to completion. As the weeks turned into months, the algae began to take hold, spreading across the planet's surface like a green wave. The toxic haze that had once choked the skies began to dissipate, replaced by clear, breathable air. The underground community cautiously emerged from their tunnels, marveling at the sight of the sun and the feeling of fresh air on their skin. Zoe and her team returned to the Icarus station as heroes, their mission hailed as a triumph of human ingenuity and perseverance. The story of their journey spread throughout the remnants of humanity, inspiring hope and a renewed sense of purpose. People began to dream of returning to Earth, of rebuilding the world that had been lost. However, Zoe knew that the road ahead would not be easy. The planet had been ravaged by centuries of neglect, and there was still much work to be done to make it fully habitable again. But she also knew that they had taken the first step, and that with determination and cooperation, anything was possible. As she stood on the observation deck of the Icarus station, gazing down at the slowly healing Earth below, Zoe felt a sense of pride and purpose, that she had never known before. She knew that she had been part of something greater than herself, something that would be remembered for generations to come. And as the sun rose over the horizon, casting a warm glow across the planet's surface, she knew that there was still hope for humanity and for the world they called home.